Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Adjustments and Appeals meeting. We are going to start our meeting. I'm calling it to order now, but we're going to start it with a Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, yep. So if everyone would please stand and say the pledge with us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, roll call, please.
Chairwoman Smith Rodriguez.
Here.
Vice Chairman Taylor.
Here.
Member Van Deven.
Here.
Aldermember Green.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. We are good to go. Council, is now a good time? Or should I? Okay.
You want to do the minutes first?
Yeah, I can do the minutes first. All right, folks, on our board, if the minutes from May 29th, 2024 look good to you, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Do a motion to approve?
Got a motion?
Second.
I have a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And none opposed. All right. So I am going to read a little blurb to our audience, and then after that, our council is going to give a statement to our applicants. So I want to check on a couple of things. There's a lot of you in attendance today. All persons who anticipate speaking on a public hearing item must fill out an oath card to be heard on that agenda item, and you have to sign the oath contained thereon. Those cards are located at the table near the entrance to our council chamber, or you may obtain them from our recording secretary. So if you didn't do that yet, you're welcome to do that now. This meeting will be conducted in accordance with the procedures adopted in Resolution 24-1997. Those speaking in favor of a request will be heard first, those opposed will be heard second, and those who wish to make public comment on the item will be heard third. An applicant may make a brief rebuttal if necessary. A representative from either side, for or against, may cross-examine a witness. Anyone who speaks is considered a witness. If you have photographs, sketches, or documents that you desire for our board to consider, they must be submitted into evidence, and they're going to be retained by the city. And you may submit those exhibits or documents to our recording secretary. All right, so again, if you didn't sign that oath card, please take a chance to do that now. I'm going to turn it over to council for directions and information to our applicants.
Thank you. Just for everyone's information who is present, as well as the board members who may need a refresher, the board is typically held of 5 positions. We have 5 regular members plus 2 alternates. 3 total people are absent today, resulting in 4 members sitting up and voting today. And I will read the section of the board's bylaws regarding quorum. For the purpose of transacting business at any regular meeting, 4 members shall constitute a quorum, and an affirmative vote of 4 members shall be required to pass on any matter, except that an affirmative vote of 3 members shall suffice to pass on a motion to deny a request for a variance. So that means that any variance approvals requires all 4 current sitting members to vote yes on the item. Otherwise, the item will be deemed to have been denied. If any applicant chooses to defer the hearing for tonight to next month, that is your choice, but you'll be required to pay the cost of re-advertising. And once the decision is made by the board, the decision is final and the applicant cannot reapply for the variance for 1 year.
Thank you, council. All right, getting back to our particular agenda items. I already talked about the oath card. Have all the items been properly advertised?
Yes, all items have been properly advertised.
Thank you. And to our members, have any of our board members here visited any of the sites or spoken to any members of the public regarding these items tonight? No, 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 and I'm a no. All right, we have no consent agenda, nor do we have any old business, so we're going to move right into new business regarding variance 9-2024 at 5576 Andrea Street, which is found on, I think, page 8 of our PDF. Staff?
All right, the variance request, the applicant is requesting a variance to the Land Development Regulations, Chapter 30, Section 30-321, Plant Materials, Section 30-321F, to allow the use of a prohibited material in the form of artificial turf for a property located in the multifamily high-density R3 zoning district at 5576 Andrea Street, Titusville, Florida 32780, as submitted by Chayan Kashanian, registered agent for Arch Rental Solutions LLC owner. The subject property is approximately 0.16 acres, and the lot is rectangular with primary frontage along Andrea Street. So for the powers of the BAA, LDR Section 34-226 states that the board shall grant a variance request when, in the opinion of the Board of Adjustments and Appeals, owing to special conditions, the literal enforcement of such ordinance or regulations would do manifest injustice to or impose an unnecessary hardship upon the applicant. In order to authorize any variance to the provisions of such ordinance, the board must consider the following criteria. A, special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved, which are not applicable to other land, structures, or buildings in the same zoning. B, special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant. C, granting the variance requested will not confer upon the applicant any special privilege that is denied by ordinance to other lands, buildings, or structures in the same zoning district. D, the literal interpretation of the provisions of the ordinance would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same zoning district under the terms of the ordinance. E, the variance granted is the minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. F, granting of the variance will preserve the spirit of the ordinance and remain in harmony with its general purpose and intent. G, in granting the variance, the public safety and welfare must be assured. And in H, in no case shall granting of a variance result in a change of use, which would not be permitted in that zone. The applicant is requesting a variance to allow the use of artificial grass in place of natural grass. Section 30-321F of the Land Development Regulations states synthetic plants prohibited. Synthetic or artificial material in the form of trees, shrubs, ground covers, vines, or artificial turf shall not be used in lieu of the plant requirements in this section. The Brevard County Property Appraiser website shows the patio home was built in 2007 as part of the Summerwood Villas subdivision. The plat for Summerwood Villas was created in 2006. In 2006, this lot was approved for a patio home in the R3 zoning. The lot contains a 5-foot public utility and drainage easement on the sides, a 5-foot public utility and drainage easement along the front, and a 7-foot public sidewalk and utility easement with an additional 10-foot landscape easement along the rear. As shown on the submitted site plan, the owner is requesting to place the turf in the front and the rear yard. The turf areas drawn on the site plan will not encroach into either easement. The lot is within the area of critical concern and has a maximum impervious coverage of 51%. According to the submitted survey, the lot is currently at 39.9% of the maximum impervious coverage. The applicant has not submitted the product specifications showing the permeability rate for the type of turf used. Without the product specifications, staff are unable to confirm if the proposed artificial grass would be considered pervious. The lot does not appear to have any special conditions or circumstances that are peculiar to the land that would create a hardship that would prevent natural landscaping. Staff recommend denial of the variance. There are no special conditions or circumstances which are peculiar to the land that would make it different from similar lots in the subdivision. The request is a self-created hardship. The applicant can meet the literal interpretation of the ordinance, and denying the request will not deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties, and the variance request is not the minimum necessary to make possible reasonable use of the land.
Thank you. Council, I noticed the next variance, same street, it looks like it's the same issue. Can we address them both at the same time, having the applicants come up one at a time, but then making a decision on it independently?
It is the same applicant. If staff wants to also present number 10, and then you can talk about them collectively, I would be okay with that.
Is it the same language on number?
Pretty much. The calculations for the impervious that's currently is the same, but we also did not receive the product specifications for the other variants either, so it's pretty much the same
Council,
language.
you want the
But I can read the analysis.
The whole analysis?
The parts that are different definitely need to be read.
Yeah.
Okay, then, just for our record purposes, regarding variance number 10-2024 at 5546 Andrea Street, I'm going to turn that over to staff as it is it's the same request with slightly different, analysis.
I will also add, though, that you'll need to have a public hearing on each of the decisions items before you come to a decision on either one, so that
Yes.
you allow the community an opportunity to speak on each item.
Yes.
So for variance 10-2024 for 5546 Andreas Street, the subject property is approximately 0.2 acres and the lot is rectangular with primary frontage along Andreas Street. That is the same. The lot has the same utility, 5-foot public utility and drainage easement on the sides, 5-foot along the front, 7-foot public sidewalk and utility easement with an additional 10-foot landscaping along the rear. The site plan will not encroach into either easement, as the turf areas drawn on the site plan will not encroach into either easement. This lot is within the area of critical concern, has the maximum impervious coverage of 51%. And according to the submitted survey, the lot is currently at 38.8% of the maximum impervious coverage. But again, the applicant has not submitted the product specifications showing the permeability rate for the type of turf used. And without those, staff are unable to confirm if the proposed artificial grass would be considered pervious. The lot does not appear to have any special conditions that would create a hardship. Staff recommend denial of the variance, and there's no special conditions.
All right, thank you for that. Bringing it back to the board now, do we have any questions that we would like to ask staff regarding those two variants and the analysis?
Was, did staff ask the applicant for what type of turf was being used, whether it would percolate or not?
Yes, I had had a few conversations with the applicant requesting the product specifications so that we'd be able to complete the calculations and then additional pictures of the site plan and things like that to help with the determination, but they were not provided.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other lights on for staff. Our first card, please.
Cheyenne Kajian?
Come on up. What is your name again?
Shine.
Shine?
Shine.
Come on up. All right, thank you.
Do I need to press a button, or is it
No,
on?
you're already on.
All right,
Go
hot
ahead and
mic.
state your name and address first, please.
My name is Shayan Kashanian. The address that I am living at currently is 320 Jennifer Drive. So I apologize, this is my first time here. Yesterday, I did send in all the specifications regarding the other product information and whatnot. I apologize. I understand that I was called about 2 weeks ago, sending in updated information regarding it, but I've been in the process of going through to a new job. So a lot of extra stuff has been on my mind. Based off of the first ticket that we received, it was stated that we were not allowed to have any artificial plant. But to my knowledge, plant has a different distinction compared to turf. Plant is really comparative with trees and shrub and whatnot. Turf is considered ground cover. Really, the main thing that I wanted to come up and prove is this is the turf that we are using for the backyard and both the front yard. And it is completely permeable through the back. It allows water to go through, no issues at all. And this is an example of bad turf that we did not use that really only has 2 drain holes that allows water to go through. This could probably cause flooding in a backyard if it was used anywhere else.
Okay.
All right, yeah.
All right, hold on. Any
Sure.
questions from our board?
When you turned in this information, does it have any specifications on it, or did you just?
There is some product information on the back of it on this, and I do have an example of the receipt for purchasing this that gives a little bit more explanation on what this product is. But I wasn't really even able to get just a full product description of it, and I went to the same store at which this turf was purchased for. So, if you'd like to take a look at the back of these to get a little bit of information on it and whatever, I can also show you guys the receipt that gives a little bit extra explanation on what this product is.
Well, you said you turned in this to the staff. When did you turn this in?
I did turn it in yesterday, but as stated before, that I was in the process of going through a new job. I've been doing a lot of training for this new job, so a lot of extra stuff has been on my mind. And I understand that one of the extra things that was asked was an updated survey map, because not only is there turf in the backyard, there is a layer of brick right in front of the back door, but it's really just kind of like a small platform. It doesn't cover majority of this backyard at all.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
Are you the owner of both properties on Andrea Street?
Both myself and my brother, we have a small rental company.
Okay. Is there a HOA?
There is, yes.
And do they allow synthetic turf?
There have been nothing that I've been aware of saying that they allow or don't allow synthetic turf. The only thing that really popped up was just the ticket from the ordinance enforcement. So I don't know who went into the backyard and got a look at it. I don't know who, submitted a complaint regarding it. So it just kind of appeared.
On that issue, I have a question for staff. I read recently in the last month or so that the HOAs did not have the ultimate say in whether or not turf was allowed, that it would be up to the city.
That's correct.
That's correct? Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Is there anything else you want to share?
No, it is regarding both of those addresses, 5546 and 76. It is essentially the exact same issue.
Understood.
So-
Thank you for that.
Sure.
All right, you can have a seat. For those in the audience, how many of you all are intending to speak on this item? Okay, Kim?
Yes, that is Mr. Grass.
Come on up.
Is that? Yes. Cloud, sorry.
Come on up to the podium. Please state your name and address first.
Yes, ma'am. I was on student council. My name is Joel Clow. My address is 5546 Andrea Street at the property, one of the properties that Cheyenne is regarding. I was born and raised here. My dad was a landscaper, so very much aware. We've lived there for about a year and a half. I have a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old. Not only do we absolutely love the sorry, I had a picture for you guys. Not only do we absolutely love it, it does drain very well. In fact, weeds will come up through some of the areas. Am I allowed to show you guys a picture of the backyard? Yep. Yes, this is the backyard. I know you have to hear me. But yes, just, especially with a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old, not having to worry about weeds, other things like that, it is actually a great pleasure to have it back there. As you can see, we use it and we greatly enjoy it. And I've, like I said, been born and raised here. I'm a Sunday school teacher at the Grove Church, and I don't have proof that it drains well, and I know that he showed you that, but it does drain very well. And like I said, my dad was a landscaper here, so I know what would work and would not work, and it works very well as far as that concern, which is, my understanding, is the main concern for why it would be denied or approved. So that's what I came to speak about.
All right, thank you. Are your comments applicable to both the variances on Andrea?
Yes, I've been to both houses. We used to know the people that lived there before us. Like I said, we've lived there for a year and a half now. And it's, especially when it's hot, it's actually cooler and just a lot easier for the girls to on their feet than St. Augustine, Flortam, or Bahia would be in regards to that. So.
Okay, thank you. Don't go anywhere. Any questions from our board? No? All right, thank you, sir. You can be seated.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Kim,
That's the last one on that item.
are there any cards on the next item, variance
No,
10?
ma'am.
No. Okay. All right, so closing both public hearings on both variance requests. I'll bring it back to our board for discussion amongst ourselves or any additional questions of staff. And when anyone's ready, we'll do individual motions to approve or deny.
No questions.
Could staff ask the applicant who he turned in this information to? By yourselves, please?
Yeah, like,
Would you all have it? Did you get it yesterday?
no.
Applicant, if you could come back up to the podium. The staff didn't receive your information that you provided yesterday. Could you just indicate where you provided it to or how you submitted it?
Through email to Tabitha Armstrong.
I mean, that's me, but I don't have anything received for,
So, okay, just double check your email when you sit back down, make sure you got it all typed correctly, and then we'll check it over here. Okay, thank you. So I know we've been through this artificial turf discussion a couple of times.
Yes, we have.
A couple of times. So generally speaking, it's in the backyard, didn't really have an issue. I think this is also in the front yard. It looks like it's a smaller bit. It's permeable. It looks nice. I don't think city council has, or the code has been updated in any sort of fashion, although I think we've made a request, maybe like a 6-month break or something. So any other thoughts?
I'm concerned about turning it down, not knowing that this material is permeable, that it does allow water to penetrate.
I suppose we could have a demonstration.
You could also you could also condition the variance on those permeability requirements
All right.
that we could, receive after the hearing. And then if the criteria that you specify matches what he's put down or what would be allowed to put down, then that would be what the variance could be based upon if you want to have that as specific criteria.
Does that criteria exist?
in the, on previous turf variances, we have been able to assess the permeability with the engineer, the city engineer, to look at the product specs to determine whether or not it has, if it would be considered impervious or not, and that's been in previous staff reports, but we just weren't able to do that with this one. So yes, I would imagine that he would be able to look at those specifications and make that determination.
I would also recommend it for the furtherance of the variance in the future. If a flooding issue ever were to arise, then that variance would be utilized to ensure that permeability is maintained.
All right, any other questions, comments?
Question. There was a submission of permeability rates on one of these variances, but not the other?
Not this set of applicants.
Not this set.
Not this
This,
set.
the previous turf requests we've had at other meetings, not either of these. I have not received any
Understood.
product specifications for either of these 9 or 10.
So it sounds like the biggest issue is getting proof of its permeability.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I see a hand waving in the back. So I've closed the public hearing, but you seem so passionate about speaking. So why don't you come back up to the podium?
I just realized a few months ago when we were going to church, it was pouring rain in our house. Our neighbors' yards were flooded completely, and ours was not, because there is a little bit in the front, and there's a little bit in the back. Once again, I don't have proof, but,
Okay.
it really does drain well. And occasionally I have to pull weeds out of it because it's so permeable, weeds will grow through the mat.
All right,
So,
duly noted.
Just meant to add that, sorry.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right. If we're ready to have a motion regarding, we'll start with 9-2024.
I'd like to make a motion to grant the variance with a stipulation that we receive the specifications showing the permeability rate for this turf. Once that's received, then, and it's approved, and I think we can go with.
So if I'm understanding correctly, the motion would be to grant the variance on the condition that it meets the city's permeability requirements.
Yes.
Okay. So that's our motion. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
I have a second. Any further discussion? No? All right, roll call, please.
Chairwoman Smith Rodriguez,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Taylor,
Yes?
Member Van Deven,
Yes.
Alternate Member Green.
Yes.
Okay, that takes care of 9-2024 at 5576 Andrea Street. So now moving on to variance 10-2024 at 5546 Andrea Street. We've already had the discussion. Any further discussion? No? I'll entertain a motion when ready.
Okay, with reference to variance number 10-2024, 5546 Andrea Street, I make a motion to grant the variance with stipulation of proof of the permeability of the turf.
Okay, we have a motion to grant the variance with the condition that the permeability meets the city's requirements. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second. Any discussion? Nope. Roll call, please.
Member Van Deven,
Yes.
Alternate Member Green,
Yes.
Chairwoman Smith Rodriguez,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Taylor.
Yes.
Okay, so both variances have been approved, but, sir, please be sure to get with the city about the specifications and permeability because that's this is conditioned on that, okay?
Right.
So get with the city.
So other than just the pictures and the emails.
Well, I'm not gonna get into any of that. Not my department, but that's your department. So after you leave here, maybe tomorrow morning, you can get with Ms. Armstrong and square it away. Okay? All right, you're welcome to stay. You're welcome to go. Have a good night. All right, folks. We are gonna move on to the third agenda item, which is variance 12-2024, found at 4175 Hickory Lake Court.
For variance 12-2024, 4175 Hickory Lake Court, the applicant is requesting a variance to the Land Development Regulations, Chapter 28, Section 28-303C, to allow the rear setback to be less than the required 25 feet for purposes of constructing a room addition for property located in the single-family low-density zoning district at 4175 Hickory Lake Court, as submitted by Tracy Bierman and Kaylee Bierman, owners. The subject property is approximately 0.45 acres. The upland portion of this lot is zoned single-family low-density R1A, and the portion that extends eastward into Hickory Lake is zoned open space and recreation, or OR. These upland dimensions meet the minimum 7,500 square foot lot area and 100-foot lot width for a single-family home within the R1A zoning district. The upland portion is square in shape. Powers of the BA, as stated earlier, remain the same. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the rear yard setback in the single-family low-density zoning district from 25 feet to 20 feet in order to allow a 439 square foot enclosed addition to be located at the rear of the existing house. Building permit records show the home was built in 1991 in the Hickory Lake subdivision. The property has an unusual shape in that the property boundaries in the rear of the home form a scalene triangle and terminate in a point in the middle of the lake. The 100 by 100 foot upland square where the home is located is zoned single-family low density. The proposed addition will be located entirely within the portion of the property zoned R1A. However, the applicant states that a variance required to reduce the rear setback from 25 feet to 20 feet because of the proximity of the existing home to the rear lake. Staff recommend approval of the variance. There are special conditions or circumstances that exist which are peculiar to the land. The property is in a regular shape. The rear yard includes a triangle portion of the lake which is currently zoned OR, and granting the variance would not provide a special privilege that is otherwise denied by ordinance. The variance is the minimum necessary that will make possible reasonable use of the land, building, or structure.
Thank you. Any questions to staff? Not yet. All right, Kim?
Tracy Bierman,
Tracy
is
Bierman,
that this one? Yeah.
welcome. Please state your name and address.
I'm Tracy Bierman. I'm at 4175 Hickory Lake Court, and I'm the homeowner and the applicant. And so I'm just here to speak in support or answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Did you want to tell us something first, or you just want to
Yes,
take
so I
questions?
would say that the existing or the addition we're going to make is not going to increase the setback. There are portions of the house that's already set back It's actually going to match that setback. And then also the setbacks of both neighbors are actually in line. All three of those houses were built originally to the same setback, so.
All right, thank you, sir. Any questions, Mr. Bierman?
This, from looking at the photos, this was an enclosed porch or something in the past?
Or the enclosed porch
Was
will
it a-
stay an enclosed porch. No, it's the portion that's cut out behind the garage. It's actually lawn right at the moment.
Oh, okay, here, okay, but it extends stopping where the porch is now.
Right, so it'll match the back of the porch.
So it'll match the back of the porch. Okay, thank you.
Page 55 might be a little easier to see. Yeah, the next page. All right, any other questions to our applicant, Mr. Bierman? No? All right, thank you, sir.
Right,
You may be
thank
seated.
you.
Next.
That's the only one for this item.
Okay. I'll close the public portion of our hearing. Any discussion or amongst the board or questions to staff? Seeing none, if someone is ready, I will entertain a motion regarding this variance.
I'll make a motion that we approve variance number 12-2024 at 4175 Hickory Lake Court to allow the setback to be changed from 25 to 20 feet.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second it.
I have a second. Any further discussion? No. Roll call, please.
Alternate Member Green,
Yes.
Chairwoman Smith Rodriguez,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Taylor,
Yes.
Member Van Deven.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Bierman, that's it. Congratulations, your variance passed. We'll get some paperwork out to you. You're free to go or you're free to stay. Have a good night. All right, moving on to variance number 15-2024, located at 5435 River Edge Drive.
Variance 15-2024, 5435 River Edge Drive. The applicant is requesting a variance to the Land Development Regulations, Chapter 28, Section 28-391G2, to allow less than the required 10-foot side yard setback for a pool enclosure for a property located in the single-family medium-density zoning district, as submitted by Kevin and Bridget Stone, owners. The subject property is approximately 0.5 acres. The lot is rectangular in shape with a jagged edge along the shoreline of the Indian River Lagoon. The lot has approximately 90 linear feet of frontage along River Edge Drive. These dimensions meet the minimum 7,500 square foot lot area and 75-foot width requirements of the R1B zoning district. Powers of the BAA continue as stated earlier. The applicant is requesting a variance to the land development regulations to allow for the construction of a pool enclosure with a side setback less than the required minimum of 10 feet. The applicant had originally requested an 8.8 side yard setback for a pool enclosure, but after staff review, it has been determined that the applicant will need to eliminate the side yard setback to place the pool enclosure onto the existing decking. The Brevard County Property Appraiser website shows that the house was built in 1983. The property was annexed into the city in 2006. The pool and decking appear to have been placed onto the property prior to being within the city's jurisdiction. The applicant's 2020 survey shows there to be a 1.2-foot encroachment of the pool deck onto the neighboring property at 5445 River Edge Drive. Staff recommend approval of the variance request to eliminate the side yard setback for a pool enclosure with the condition that all pool deck encroachments onto the property at 5445 River Edge Drive are removed. There are special conditions or circumstances that exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved and which are not applicable to other land, structures, or buildings in the same zoning. The pool and decking were placed onto the property prior to being annexed into the city's jurisdiction. By granting the variance requested, the applicant will not be receiving a special privilege that is otherwise denied by ordinance to other lands of the same zoning. The variance is the minimum necessary to make possible reasonable use of the property.
Okay, thank you. I guess I just want a quick clarification. Staff recommends approval of the variance request to eliminate the side yard setback for the pool enclosure with the condition that all pool deck encroachments onto the property, 5445, okay, I got it, the neighbor. Okay, thank you. Questions of staff? No. Okay, first card?
I have no cards for that item.
Okay, is there anyone here who thought they wanted to speak on this, but just forgot to sign an oath card? Okay. So I'll close the public portion of our hearing. Ms. Armstrong, am I to understand that it already exists? It's there, it just needs to come into conformity?
The pool decking exists. They're trying to add a pool enclosure, a screening around it, and because of the setback requirements for the enclosure, they'd be unable to place it.
All right.
Can I just ask, is the applicant present? Not seeing? Thank you.
I don't think we have to read it. I can read it on page 79 of our packet.
That there is a included letter from the neighbor. Is that what?
Yes, that's what I'm looking
Sorry,
at.
mine is being very.
The neighbor sums up, it says they are the neighbor, they couldn't attend the meeting, we have no objections to the proposed pool enclosure as long as all of the encroachments have been removed from our property. That pretty much sums it up. Okay, I'll ask our board to take a look at that letter also in preparation of our discussion. Other than that, any questions to staff or discussion amongst ourselves?
So if we made a recommendation to approve, we would have to, I would say, add this extra requirement that all encroachments be removed from the next door neighbor?
Yes, and I think that is the recommendation of staff as well.
Yes.
Okay, that is the full recommendation.
All right, if someone's ready, I'll entertain a motion. Margaret's on it today.
With regard to variance 15/2024 5435 River Edge Drive, I make a motion to approve the variance with the condition, let's see, I got it right here. With the condition that all pool deck encroachments onto the property at 5445 River Edge Drive are removed.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Vice Chairman Taylor,
Yes.
Member Van Deven,
Yes.
Alternate Member Green,
Yes.
Chairwoman Smith Rodriguez.
Yes. All right, that variance is granted. Moving on to our last variance for the evening, found at, it's 16-2024 regarding parcel ID number 21-35-32-64-5, found on page 90 of our packet.
All right, variance number 16-2024. The applicant is requesting a variance to the Land Development Regulations, Chapter 30, Section 30-332, required landscape yards, Section 30-332A, to eliminate the required landscape yard of 20 feet for a property located in the multifamily high-density zoning district located at parcel ID 21-35-32-64-5 as submitted by Eastern Capital Land, registered agent for Silvestri Investments of Florida owner. Subject property is 7.67 acres. The lot is irregular in shape, fronts Christian Court, and meets the minimum lot width and minimum area of the R3 zoning. Use is current vacant land, but PSP 24-0095 is currently under site plan review. Powers of the BAA continue as stated earlier. The applicant is requesting a variance to the land development regulations to eliminate the required landscape yard of 20 feet. The land development regulations require a 20-foot landscape yard buffer when proposed development is multifamily residential. Tables 30-8 and 30-9 of the code specify the location and width of the buffer, including the amount and type of vegetation to be planted. The property was replatted in 1998, establishing the 70-foot right-of-way for Christian Court. There's a 30-foot public utility and drainage easement to the west of Christian Court, a stormwater easement along the northwest corner, a 20-foot public utility and drainage easement along the northeast corner and down the east side of the property, a 30-foot stormwater easement along the south of the property. The applicant is requesting to eliminate the required 20-foot landscape buffer along the perimeter of the property, starting from the west side of Christian Court, continuing clockwise to the southeast corner. The south property line will maintain a 20-foot landscape buffer. A site permit was issued in 2005 for a townhome development at the site. The private roadways were constructed and the utilities were installed. However, the townhome project was never completed. The applicant states that the utilities, stormwater, and drainage are already in place, and they are unable to comply with the 20-foot landscape buffer requirement as the existing drainage and stormwater system creates a hardship. LDR Section 30-337B states that landscape yards shall not be included as drainage right-of-way, utility, or other easements unless the low-impact development best management practices listed in the Low-Impact Development Technical Manual, Section 11.6, Low-Impact Development Incentive Matrix, are utilized, or such user or otherwise approved by the administrator, providing that the original intent and purpose of this section is met and there are unusual circumstances provided to the administrator. It appears that the applicant could utilize LID practices, or as vegetated swales, to meet all code requirements without the need for a variance. Staff recommend denial of the variance to eliminate the required landscape yard. The literal interpretation of the code does not place a hardship onto the proposed development, and will deprive the owner of rights commonly enjoyed by others in the same zoning district. The variance is not the minimum necessary to make possible reasonable use of the property, and the applicant may utilize low-impact development best management practices and meet all code requirements.
Thank you. Any questions to staff?
Back when this was originally plotted, was this issue brought up?
It does not appear so, that it was not. In the previous site plan that was approved in 2005, there's no notation. I was unable to find anything as far as the landscape buffering was. The drainage easements were there. There's a landscape plan, but it wasn't as detailed in the records that I was able to find.
To your knowledge, has any of the requirements changed since that time to this time?
I'm not aware of any. It's possible that the landscape buffer requirement came in after the fact, but I don't know that for certain.
Eddie, the LID ordinance came well after.
Oh, LID did. I'm talking about
Yeah.
the landscape buffer requirement.
Has ownership changed from 2005? We looking at the same owner then as now?
I do not, yeah, believe it's different.
I too was wondering what Mr. Taylor was asking, if the landscape had been done as it's proposed now, back in 2005, would it have been an issue?
The landscape plans in the record were not as detailed as what we review and receive today. The verbiage listed on the site plan, they were meeting all of the required plantings, and they appeared to be similar to what we would do now, but as far as the buffering is concerned, that was not notated on the records I was able to find.
There's a transfer of ownership in 2009, 2010, 2011, and 2012.
All right, any other questions to staff?
Look at page, I guess, 102. Where I see a red line all around the whole property, is a particular place that's not meeting the 20 feet? What I'm confused.
That red line area is where they're requesting to have no landscape buffer requirement. So there's currently a 20-foot that would be required to be along the entire edge of the property, and they're requesting to eliminate the landscaping buffer in that red line. That south portion will maintain it. They notate that on the plan that there's a 20, if you zoom in a little, there's a 20-foot landscape buffer along that southern property line, but all of that red line is where they are requesting to eliminate that requirement.
And what are some of the low-impact development best management practices?
Typically what we see is a vegetated swale. So when council adopted the low impact development ordinance, they wanted to provide sites with some flexibility to co-locate some of these facilities. So where you might have a drainage ditch that needs to be cleared every so often, is not intended for vegetation. Typically we'd expect the drainage ditch and then the landscape buffer outside of that. And the LID ordinance allows for co-location of those so that it achieves both functions. You can have planted trees and shrubs to act as a screening for that development to the neighboring properties, while also being used for stormwater purposes. In this case, the applicant has stated, I believe, has stated that this is not a possibility for this site.
Okay. Any other questions of staff?
Is there any requirement for this, that this development provide a fence or a screening between that and the R1 properties next to it?
Yes, screening could be in terms of a landscape buffer, not necessarily a fence or wall. The code does allow some flexibility to allow fences or walls, but a fence is not specifically required.
Okay, thank you.
But a landscape buffer is?
Correct. And so the request is to remove that requirement.
All right. Let's see who our first card is.
Kim Fisher.
Kim Fisher. Welcome. Please state your name and address, please.
Thank you. Good evening. Kim Fisher. I am representing the contract purchaser. My address is 1614 White Dove Drive, Winter Springs, Florida, 32708. I'm going to give it a little bit of history on this project, if that's okay. We did meet with city staff, I think maybe 3 or 4 times in person. I don't believe either of you were at any of our in-person meetings, but we had specific conversations on the LID, and it's the city engineer, because the stormwater facilities are in place, there's no way for us to do LID. The pond is existing, the ditches are existing. So along the perimeter of the property, well, actually, the entire property has already been constructed. So the streets are in, the water is in, the sewer is in, and the stormwater system is in. The city of Titusville is utilizing the existing ditches and pond also as the right-of-way drains onto this property, the public right-of-way along Christian Court. So the existing pond and the existing ditches are there. Public Works did not want LID there, so I don't know where there's been a disconnect, because this is the first I've heard of this. They were pretty specific that there'd be no way for us to install it. That would decrease the capacity of the stormwater system that's in place, that they're also utilizing. We did agree that, in the meeting, any of the plantings that would go in the buffer, and to be clear, it's along the perimeter is where the existing stormwater facilities exist. So this isn't a case where we don't want to provide a buffer. It's just these stormwater facilities are in existence and are being used. And so we did agree that we would do all of the plantings just interior to the property, since we have no physical way to provide the buffer. I'm going to assume everybody here is for a project, so I'll be interested to see what the opposition is, and hopefully we can have a rebuttal. My client is not the current owner. I have been out there several times with him, and we do know there's homelessness going on out there and a little lack of mowing, so please, anybody behind me, don't yell at us for that. We're not the current owner, so I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. I hope that clears up what we're asking and why we're here, and why city was specific to us in our meetings and subsequent to our final meeting in person that we could not utilize the LID.
Okay, thank you. Any questions to Ms.
Yeah.
Fisher?
All right, just to clarify, this is, even though I'm seeing a red line all around the whole property, you're talking about just where the existing retention ponds are for not meeting that requirement, is that correct?
And there's a ditch. There's already a ditch in place going around the perimeter where that red line is as well.
Okay, so there's so it's already there.
Correct.
Okay. Just trying to understand what's there now and what was proposed in the past.
I got you. And from my understanding, after everything was built in and then the crash in 2008, 2009, they never came in and platted what they had put in the ground. And so because they never platted, the plans, everything they done is therefore no longer permitted, for lack of a better way to explain that, because it never got platted. So Now we're coming in and instead of platting them in individual lots, they'll still look the same like townhomes. They're just going to be done as condos in order to meet current regulation because the way it was built no longer meets current regulation. It's very confusing.
Okay, so this will be basically a condo association,
Correct.
not a individual townhome where you own the dirt.
Correct.
Oh, okay. Well,
It will look
Look the
like a
same.
townhome, but the ownership will be a little bit different.
Okay. That-
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Before we move on to how many of you all are speaking on this topic tonight? Oh, just a handful. Okay, before I get to you all, I want to clarify then with Ms. Armstrong. In the recommendation, it unequivocally says that the applicant may use LID and meet all code requirements. And the applicant is saying 100% there was a discussion that it didn't happen. So can you give me a little more information on how they can actually meet the code requirements by using LID specifically?
So I spoke with Public Works to see what that was, and they were stating that the city would not be maintaining, would not handle the maintenance for that project of the vegetated swales, and that there was potentially other LID other than the vegetated swales that could be utilized.
So my understanding is that the city currently maintains that area, and that if LID were to be proposed to transition that system from a conventional swale or ditch to a vegetated swale, then the maintenance requirements we wanted to be clear, would not be the city's requirement to maintain around the vegetation that they planted to meet the code requirement. So we still do believe that LID could be used to meet the intent, the landscape buffer, and apply that landscape buffer within the existing drainage easement.
So in a more basic layman discussion, are we talking about literally planting plants at the top part of the drainage ditch
Yes,
and in the ditch?
yes.
Okay. Ms. Fisher, could you come back on up, please? Hearing that, would you care to respond?
We wanted to do LID. So again, I mean, I don't want to say the staff's name. We had conversations. Again, it wasn't either of you. I don't know why it would have been. I'm trying to be polite. Why somebody couldn't just pick up the phone, because we have very specific conversations with Public Works and with planning about doing LID. From the Public Works perspective, the LID wasn't going to work from a maintenance perspective because of what's already there. And then from the planning department, after our last meeting, they were going to go back to look at the code to see if there was a way that we could do an LID. And then when they got back with us, their response was there wasn't a way for us to do the LID. Let's do the variance.
Well, let me ask you this. If everyone gets in a room together and has a conversation, a transparent conversation, and it come to find out that you can plant plants at the top and inside the ditch, do you, your client,
We
or
would
the
do
owner
it.
have a problem with that?
No, not at all. We would
You would do it.
absolutely do that. So I don't know if the right thing is to table this until next month, but we've never been opposed to the LID. This is the path the city staff led us down.
Okay, it gives me a better idea.
Okay.
Thank you for your time again.
Thanks.
And you will get a rebuttal. Okay, Ms. Kim?
John Morris?
John Morris? Welcome. Please state your name and address.
Sure. It's John Morris. It's 4001 Ainsley Avenue. That's Orlando, Florida, 32833. So I just kind of want to kind of firm up on Kim. The intent was never to not do a landscaping buffer. However, we were not allowed to do it because of the LID and the way the stormwater structure was imposing on the property. So the way that we understood it as there's a 30-foot drainage easement, utility easement on the back of the property, and then there would have to be a 20-foot landscaping buffer in addition. So that's a total of 50 feet of land that would encroach into the lots on the townhome community. So kind of firming this up and kind of doing a full circle, when we walk through this, the LID that was proposed to us is not tree-based, but more rock-based. So I want as we kind of come back and regroup, there won't be landscaping there with the LID. And the previous meetings, it was rocks, it was kind of a gravel 57 stone base. In the meeting, when we discussed this with staff, we felt that was not the right move because you would just have weeds growing through the rocks as it is. And it would eventually take over the rock. And since the HOA is not maintaining the stormwater system and the city wasn't going to maintain it, it would just be overgrown, unsightly, therefore not being effective. And in fact, as the grass grew through the rocks, you would lose the momentum that would carry the water to the ultimate drainage basin that's located on the western portion of the property. So, and I mean, Kim can kind of back this up as well.
So your proposal to kind of address all issues would be what?
I mean, ideally, if we could shift the landscaping onto the lot, that'd be wonderful for us. But according to the development code, we can't put the landscaping buffer on lot. So our issue is how we were trying to get around this, and why we're here today is there's no way to do a 30-foot drainage easement with a 20-foot landscaping buffer. That 50 feet just doesn't work for the property, and it's probably a deal breaker for us.
And instead of rocks, is there another option then?
At meeting with staff, and keep in mind, this was our third meeting on this with staff, there was no other way. We sat
Do
there.
you think there's another way? Do you see it in a different way?
You know, if we can get a variance to allow us to put the landscaping buffer on lot, then yes. If we continue down having a buffer as landscaping, yes.
Okay, and because I'm asking, because when I ask staff and they're saying that even putting plants in or on the drainage ditch, and you're saying the proposal was rocks, can you put plants there instead?
Well, that was our original conversation with staff, was rocks, because if we put plants in the ditch, you would block the flow of water. So if you're looking at it, all the water from Christian Court comes where the McDonald's is and the auto store, runs down Christian Court, into our subdivision, then flows into the ditch, and then goes, well, I guess if you're looking on the eastern boundary of our property, it flows south to north, then east to west into a ditch that's owned by another entity that we're not part of. So if we obstruct that flow, it would eventually lead to flooding in the community. So I just don't see that LID works for this at all. I mean, keep in mind, these stormwater systems have been there for 19 years and flowing. So our intent is to clean it, bring it back to where it should be, because we have 19 years of growth that, you know, need to be cleaned out. But ultimately, you don't want to obstruct this. So keeping any kind of plants and vegetation in the ditch would ultimately cause probably a longer term problem.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions, Mr. Morris?
And y'all would maintain this ditch, is that correct? Well, I mean, if you're planning just.
If this is something that we can throw in the HOA docs, then yeah. I mean, obviously that would, I mean, maintaining a ditch and mowing it and keeping it a stormwater ditch is a lot easier than LID. The burden on LID with a small community like this is just astronomical. Your HOA fees would go through the roof, which kind of, you know, in this market kind of burdens the owners.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next,
Evelyn Levi?
Ms. Levi?
Hi.
Hi, are you for or against?
Well, I was definitely thinking against.
Okay, well, go ahead and say your name. I just wanted to get my head on straight. So state your name and address first, please.
My name is Evelyn Levy. I live at 468 Fern Avenue. So that's on the east side of this planned development. I'm assuming you have the site plans in front of you?
We have lots of things in front of us, but you keep talking, we'll start scrolling.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I brought copies in case you need them. The Fern side of the development, things are very, very tight. And when I called planning, I was left with the impression that the red outline around the property was going to be the buffer area. Especially on the Fern side, you will notice things are extremely, extremely tight to where the buildings are, to where there is any kind of green space. There's also the utility easement on that side that has to be kept open. But something has got to be done to protect the surrounding neighborhood. Because right now, I wasn't able to find out, I was told by planning, they're not required to submit that at this time, how many stories these things are going to be. Which, that's fine, but it would affect the number of stories on how much impact it has on my home. The way that the units are shown on the site plan, I believe I'm gonna have a massive row of windows on my side, looking into my backyard, which I would definitely not be a fan of.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, you want to have some sort of screen, and the method of planting something would accomplish your concern, solve
That
your
would
concern.
accomplish my concern. Now, I
Okay.
did go back and read the description of how the buffer works. Unfortunately, I couldn't get it printed up, which did allow for, there could be potentially a wall, which would not eat up as much space as landscaping. But I don't know if we're going 3 stories up, because I was told that they can build up to 35 feet. You know, I'm not sure how you can't build a wall that tall.
Okay.
So, and also, I believe right now, you don't have enough information, and which sounds like we're kind of maybe not going with the variance now anyway, I'm not sure. But I don't think you have enough information to make a good judgment on if the variance could go away, because you don't know how tall the buildings are gonna be. And, you know, there's some pertinent information missing in my mind. So I guess that's it. Oh, when it comes back around to discuss, well, I'm assuming at some point the buildings are gonna get discussed, because planning told me that they've not been approved officially. Is that correct?
We are only here today to address the request regarding the landscape buffer.
Right.
Very specifically, that is all. We can't take anything prospective or address that. It'll come as
Well,
it comes.
can you tell me who or where I can look to see when more is going to be coming up about this?
I can't.
Who
But
can?
I'm sure the city as a whole or staff might be able to give a generalized timeline. I'm not going to ask them to do that now, because I want to stay focused on what we're accomplishing today. But if you stick around, you maybe can get a little bit more information.
Okay, yeah, because I tried to make a bunch of phone calls and really didn't get anywhere.
Stick around. So
Okay.
let me see. Does anyone have any questions for our witness? It's Levy or Levi?
Levy.
Levy. Any questions for Ms. Levy? No. All right. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Next card.
Okay, I can't read the name, but the address is 476 Fern Avenue.
Hi there. Come on up. Please state your name and address.
Hi, my name's Kason. I live at 476 Fern Avenue. I am.
Jason, what's your last name?
Childs. Childs? Yeah. So Kason Childs, 476 Fern. I'm against it, the variance. Currently, there's, at the back of my property, which I think is near the north side of Fern, right where it goes toward Elder, right before the actual curve. My brick wall is right up on the property line, and during heavy rain, it will already kind of like come up in water. There's puddles. So I'm afraid that if there's less landscape buffer, that it'll flood more than it already is. So any landscape buffer that's not currently there, my main issue is flooding. So, and I keep hearing a bunch of stuff that's already been put there. So obviously there had to have been some kind of planning for buildings to be put there before the utilities were already put in. So if there's some kind of change that needs to be made, they should change the utilities and then plan that way instead of trying to make a smaller space. Because like the lady that came up before me, there is a very small space already with Fern. If you look at the properties on the East side of Fern, on the other side of the street, they have much larger backyards versus my side of Fern. Our backyards are not that big. So there's already a small amount of space for water to tread off wherever it's gonna go. So, and that's my main concern, is flooding and space between buildings.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions, Mr. Childs? No? All right, thank you. Appreciate your time. Next card.
Charles Brunty Jr.
Welcome. Please state your name and address.
My name is Charles Brunty Jr. I live at 460 Fern Avenue. I've lived in Titusville most of my life. I'm a former student of Andrew Jackson Middle School, graduated from Titusville High School. I bought my house with my wife in 2005, actually February of 2005, and at that time, that was all woods. 2 weeks after I purchased that property with my wife, they leveled every tree on the property. Might have left 2 or 3 on the property. And we've struggled with that for many, many years. Buffer yards are intended to reduce both visually and physically the negative impacts generated by abutting uses. The side of this parcel that has the least room is where it meets mine and my neighbors' homes. The area that they are requesting the variance on abuts to all of our residential homes. The areas that they don't want the variance abuts to commercial businesses. It was stated that there's stormwater stuff in place along the perimeter. I've never seen any behind my yard. We do live at the highest point, so we don't see much of a swale, but there's really not much but grass and dirt back there. I also think that it serves as a vital tool in protecting the natural environment. It acts as a barrier against pollutants, noise, runoff from construction sites. In my opinion, maintaining this buffer is the builder's responsibility to contribute to preserving local ecosystem, reducing erosion, and mitigating the impact of urban sprawl on the wildlife habitats. I know for a fact there's gopher tortoises on that site right now, quite a few of them. Me and my family, we do walk that neighborhood. It's kind of nice to have a little 1 mile loop behind our house. So my concerns are the environmental impact, the loss of privacy, increase in noise pollution. Without more information right now and an established plan by the builders ensuring that their developments are in harmony with the broader community goals and values, I implore this committee to deny this request. To close, I ask, what would you want if it was your home to be so closely impacted? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Any questions to our witness? No? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next.
Nicole Brunty.
Welcome. Please state your name and address.
Thank you. My name is Nicole Brunty, address 460 Fern Avenue. I absolutely had no plans to come up here and talk tonight until I heard some comments before me. I thought everything that was supposed to be said was truthful and factual, but when I was listening, I heard that they were talking about the drainage ditch that's all the way around the property. There is in fact no drainage ditch all the way around the property. That's what your entire conversation with them was based upon, is this drainage ditch. All along Fern Avenue, there is 0 drainage ditch. As far as along the other side on Elder, I am unaware. I know there is some down by the retention pond, but I think this needs to be discussed again, the drainage ditch that they're speaking of, because there is none on the entire side of Fern. So I'm just curious how accurate the other statements are that's being made, if there are records of being talked with the city when supposedly it was agreed upon that they could remove this or do whatever they needed to do to make it work, that they're saying happened. They also said that it would be a lot to be upkept as far as the plants go. If they're saying this is going to be condos and the owners don't own the land, then the condos shouldn't have a problem with upkeeping the property that's there. And that's really all I have to say.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Any questions for our witness? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Christopher Childs.
Welcome. Please state your name and address.
Christopher Childs, 5627 Enchanted Avenue. Yeah, my son lives on this, on bordering this development, and he showed me the variance notice and stuff, so I started talking to him about it, and I just kind of came here undecided at first, but I think low impact development is something the city's going towards, and I think it's very helpful for stormwater, and it's not as, it's better to look at. And I think it's something that when anytime we've talked about it on planning and zoning, we've always heard that it's usually cheaper to do. I'm no expert in LID by any means on how to implement it, but I know that when you have a ditch, which I've been to my son's house, there's no drainage ditch behind his backyard at 476 Fern. So I don't know. I guess it's just over in retention area. And that's one of the things I think that there's some disconnect that seems to be going on here between, the requester and the city. So I think if anything, you should table it or should come back until everyone has a really good idea of what's going on, because we definitely don't want flooding on any of these properties, and if there's already puddles going and there's really not a clear plan of what is back there and what the plan is going forward, I just don't see granting a variance on something that we don't have all the information on. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions for our witness? All right, Mr. Childs, thank you. Next.
That's the last one.
Okay. All right, I will close the public portion of our hearing, bring it back to the board for just.
Before you close it, can we get the rebuttal?
Oh, rebuttal, I forgot. I promised it, I forgot. Thank you. Yes. Welcome back, Ms. Fisher. Will you just state your name again, please?
Thank you, Kim Fisher. Is it okay if the other applicant also speaks after me? Because we're kind of.
Yeah, if you're both,
Thank
yeah,
you.
both applicants.
Okay, because I don't, I never like anybody to say, especially publicly or even privately, that I'm not telling the truth, because that's not the instance. And we do have documentation that, I'm going to call it a swale, and so instead of a ditch. So if somebody wants to splice any kind of words, we have documentation from the original plans and from the survey that there is a swale back there. Can I say definitively if it's 100%? In place versus what proposed? No, I didn't look at it with that type of detail. But there's also, one of the neighbors mentioned, I forgot to bring up, there's also utilities there. I believe there's some power lines back there. So if we've got the utility easement, we can't move those power poles and utility lines. And so there's physically no way to create, we have to put in an easement in order to protect both the drainage system and the utilities. We have to put in that easement. And so from our conversations with city staff was there wasn't a way to mix the two with landscaping, utility, and the drainage. If staff has since changed their minds, we're not opposed to tabling this to not last till next month or whenever it works out on the calendar. We're definitely not opposed to tabling that, but I'm just not sure how we would do a perimeter buffer considering what is there existing. And I think as John has mentioned, some places it might be 30 feet, some places it might be 20 feet that we've got to go ahead and officially record a utility and drainage easement along the property line. That would mean, and that's going to have to be along that property line, that would mean the buffer landscaping would have to come interior to that. If it comes interior to that, then there's no longer room for a building of any size. We can state for the record, the building is only going to be 2-story, whether that's a condition or just anybody in the audience that needs to hear that it's just a 2-story home, which is what was planned originally. So just wanted to put some of those things on the record. And again, we're more than happy to table it. And if the citizens want to meet with us, if we need to meet with city staff again, we're okay to any of the options.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Morris? And your name one more time, please.
Absolutely, thank you. It's John Morris. I think the important thing here is I want to establish that we are not trying to redo something or do something that's not already there. to kind of bring this full circle, we're part of the airport height obstruction zone, so we are limited to what we can put there. Meaning, we can't go over 25 feet on our building structures, so all of our townhomes will be less than 25 feet, and we can't impose any trees that will be greater than 20 feet. So this kind of also directly affects what we do in our landscape buffer as well as what we do in what could be an LID, because cypress trees grow greater than 20 feet. So we're really restricted based on the location of this site and the well-reclaimed area that what we can and can't do to this site. Fern has a great point, and I respect everyone's opinion on that, and I agree with them. Fern also has the highest elevation. Their elevation starts at 39 feet above sea level and gradually slopes to 27 feet above sea level, which is the highest area on this site. So most of the buildings that will sit lower, 5 feet lower than what Fern currently sits, so you're not having to worry about neighbors looking over a fence because the height's not there. We're limited to what we can put in place. The goal was not to eliminate the trees. We propose adding more trees to staff, especially if you look where Christian Court comes in and there's a cul-de-sac. There's a common area there. We were going to make that a park and heavily landscape that with both viburnum and trees that kind of fit that under 20-foot buffer for the airport zone. So I think these are all kind of things, again, we don't want to put anything that's going to impact the utility lines there. So this is something that it was already approved without the landscape buffer. We're not asking for anything different other than, this is for the site to be able to maintain and for stormwater to flow. One, we have to go in and clean it up. So what we're going to be held to, what's on site now is not going to stay. And I say that not in a bad way, but that we're going to go in and we're going to clean it up and we're going to make it right. So we're going to approve the calculations. We're going to regrade the land so that way it does flow. If it's not there now, it's supposed to be, and we'll make sure it's done. So that's really all I have to say. If there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them and kind of talk through this.
All right. Any questions?
Are you opposed to tabling it, as your associate said?
Yeah, no, I'm not opposed to it.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Now I'll close the public portion of our hearing. I just want to make a comment, and then I'd like to open up to everyone else. So there's a huge disconnect here. Most of the time when we have variances that come in, staff makes a recommendation, the applicant says, yeah, but, and there's something that's either common ground is found or it's a lot closer than what we have here. Here we have the staff report saying the applicant can 100% meet all code requirements if they just use some low impact management strategies. And then you have the applicant saying we 100% can't do that because of X, Y, and Z. So it's unusual to have that dynamic at our variance meetings, which causes me concern that there's miscommunication or misunderstanding. And we're about to make a very important decision, which will be finalized one way or the other. I just want to put that out there to see if staff had any further information that can address any of these comments that were brought up.
Sure. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things, and if you'll turn to page 103 of 105 of the packet, I wanted to share with the board that what you'll see is on the eastern side, the right-hand side, along the perimeter of the property boundary, there's a 20-foot PUDE, public utility and drainage easement. On a site that had not previously been graded, installed, had utilities installed, that area is typically what we would have seen as the landscape buffer, a 20-foot vegetated area, and that buffer helps to separate the development distance-wise and then also with landscaping to screen the development. If the board wanted to consider the option of approving the variance on the condition that the landscaping that would have been required within that landscape buffer still be required between the buildings and the property boundaries, that would achieve the distance requirement because you've got your utility easement that creates that separation physically, And then you've got the landscaping that would have been required within the landscape buffer. So that is a potential solution if you wanted to make a decision tonight. Otherwise, happy to follow along with the tabling and further discussion to fully vet this out.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. All right, any other discussion amongst ourselves, questions of staff, game plan to actually adjudicate this or to table it?
I don't know that we could make everyone here happy either way tonight with the information we have. I like what staff just said, but I think it needs to be included in the application to us, not just us adding this line, adding that line, or whatever. So I'm in favor of postponing if at all possible.
I agree. There's no ditch there now. According to what I'm looking at, it looks like more of a buffer and utility easement. I don't understand the testimony regarding the drainage and the necessity for a ditch. So I'm confused too. So I think tabling it would be in the best interest of both parties.
Mr. Green?
I like the idea of tabling it. I'm gonna go walk the site. We're just gonna see what you got, and I think the applicant and staff need to sit down and have a meeting and come at us in 30 or 60 days, whatever we can get them in on, and we'll circle back and deal with it after they meet.
Okay. In light of the comments of the rest of the board.
I would encourage you not to walk the site, but we can talk about that after if you'd like.
Okay.
Scared.
I would imagine that.
I carry.
I would imagine that the kind of proposal of the condition that staff had just indicated, I don't know whether that's even applicable to just the Fern Avenue side or if that can go all the way around. So the board has, at least my colleagues up here, have recommended tabling it. So, and I believe both applicants had indicated they're fine with tabling it. I heard a lot of our witnesses indicate that we don't have enough information, so it sounds like everybody's okay with tabling it. I will entertain a motion when ready.
First, let's ask staff, is it 30 or 60 days logically to make this happen? I mean, I don't want to set an arbitrary date and then you can't get it done. So what, you know your schedule better than we do.
If it's beyond a month from now, if it's beyond the July meeting, then it will need to be re-advertised. If you set it for the July board meeting, you can always continue it again if the required meetings have not been accomplished. Staff can update you at the next meeting if you do table it to the July board meeting at date certain.
Well, that answers my question. Thank you.
Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that, I don't have the number in front of me, I'm sorry. What page? Oh, there it is. Okay. I make a motion that we table variant 16-2024 until our next meeting in July.
July 24th.
July 24th? Okay.
Is it July 24th? Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion to table this until July 24th. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Thank you. I have a second. Any discussion? No, we kind of did all that. All right, roll call, please.
Member Van Deven,
Yes.
Aldermember Green,
Yes.
Chairwoman Smith Rodriguez,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Taylor.
Yes.
Okay, so that variance will be tabled. We're not doing anything today. See you all back July 24th. See you all back July 24th if you all wish. Okay.
May I? In all seriousness, I do recommend that you not walk the property for a couple of reasons. One being that it is a quasi-judicial item. You are the judges, and the evidence that's presented for you at the hearing should be the basis of your decision. And secondly, I believe it's private property.
Okay, thank you, council. That moves us on to our next agenda item, which is any petitions or requests from the public that are present, of which there are many. Ms. Kim, any cards?
No, ma'am.
Anybody who wanted to speak, but they didn't fill out a card to talk about anything? Do we have to take a card for that, Ms. Farrell?
For petitions, no.
Just invite them up one by one. Okay, thank you all. See you all next month. Ma'am, come on up. Oh, there's a comment that's about to be made if you all have any interest in staying and hearing it. Would you please first state your name and address?
My name is Jonda Irwin. I live at 2927 Elder Street, so I live on the other side. I've had a lot of conversations with different neighbors, and we do not begrudge them building. We just want to be able to live with whatever is built there. I live directly behind McDonald's where the retention pond is. And ever since they took the landscaping out when that bulldozing happened years ago, every time the hurricanes come and we get all that wind, the water comes into my yard by like 5 feet. So we know that whatever gets built there will help us. We just need to be able to live with what is there. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you. Anyone else intending to speak, make a petition or request? No? Okay, all right. Other than that, moving on to our next agenda item, any reports, staff, council? No? Okay, fine. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all for being here today. I appreciate your time.